John Fitzgerald Kennedy, better known as JFK, is one of the most iconic and inspirational figures in American history. A man whose life was filled with extraordinary highs and heartbreaking lows, but whose vision and determination continue to inspire millions even decades after his untimely death. Born on May 29, 1917, in Brookline, Massachusetts, John was the second son in a large Irish Catholic family that valued discipline, education, and above all, service. His father, Joseph P. Kennedy Sr., was a wealthy businessman and a powerful political figure who had ambitious dreams for his children. His mother, Rose Fitzgerald Kennedy, came from a political dynasty of her own, and together, they instilled in their children a deep sense of purpose, responsibility, and resilience. While many remember JFK as the glamorous, confident, and charismatic leader who became the 35th President of the United States, his path to success was anything but easy. From a very young age, John struggled with severe health issues, facing one challenge after another, which shaped his character and taught him the importance of perseverance. As a boy, John's life was far from comfortable despite his privileged background. He was frequently ill, often bedridden for weeks at a time, suffering from scarlet fever, chronic back problems, and later what would be diagnosed as Addison's disease, a rare condition that affected his adrenal glands. Doctors doubted he would even live past his teenage years, and his family constantly worried about his fragile health. Yet, it was in these periods of pain and isolation that John developed a sharp intellect, a hunger for reading, and an ability to reflect deeply on the world around him. He consumed history books, biographies of world leaders, and stories of courage, preparing himself for a future that few believed he would live to see. Despite his illnesses, John grew up in a fiercely competitive environment. The Kennedy household was filled with ambition, with Joseph Kennedy Sr. often pushing his children to outperform each other in academics, sports, and leadership. His older brother, Joseph Kennedy Jr., was considered the golden child, the one destined for greatness, while John was often seen as the sickly second son. This comparison might have discouraged others, but for John, it lit a quiet fire. He developed a subtle determination to prove himself, to rise above expectations, and to carve his own path, even if it seemed unlikely at the time. John attended Choate, a prestigious boarding school in Connecticut, where he continued to struggle with his health but slowly began to shine in other areas. He had a natural charm, a wit that drew people to him, and a keen sense of observation. Teachers noticed his sharp mind, even if his grades were inconsistent due to frequent illnesses. But it wasn't just his intelligence that set him apart, it was his resilience. At Choate, he wrote a humorous essay titled Appeasement at Munich, in which he criticized the political decisions of European leaders during World War II. His ability to see beyond the surface, to analyze politics with clarity at such a young age, hinted at the leader he would one day become. After Choate, John entered Harvard University in 1936. By then, his father had become U.S. ambassador to the United Kingdom, and the Kennedy family lived partly in London. While at Harvard, John pursued political science and international affairs. It was here that he began shaping his worldview, deeply influenced by the events unfolding in Europe. Fascism was rising, Hitler was gaining power, and the world seemed to be on the edge of war. John traveled across Europe, meeting leaders, observing situations firsthand, and developing a strong understanding of foreign policy. His senior thesis, later published as the book Why England Slept, analyzed Britain's lack of preparedness for World War II. The book became a bestseller, not only giving John recognition as a thinker but also planting the seeds of his political future. But tragedy soon struck the Kennedy family. In 1944, during World War II, John's older brother Joe Jr., the one groomed for political greatness, was killed in a bombing mission. This loss devastated the family but also shifted their expectations. Suddenly, John, once seen as the frail second son, became the one who would carry the Kennedy legacy forward. The pressure on his shoulders increased, but John did not shy away. Instead, he embraced the responsibility, determined to live not only for himself but also for the brother whose dreams he would now fulfill. Before his brother's death, John had already made his mark in the military. Despite his health problems, he insisted on joining the Navy during World War II. Many doubted his ability to serve, but John's determination was unshakable. He was assigned to command a patrol torpedo boat, PT-109, in the Pacific Theater. In 1943, his boat was struck by a Japanese destroyer, splitting it in half. Several crew members were killed instantly, and others were severely injured. John himself suffered a back injury but refused to give up. Displaying extraordinary courage, he led the surviving crew to safety, swimming miles across dangerous waters while towing an injured sailor with a life jacket strap clenched in his teeth. For his heroism, he was awarded the Navy and Marine Corps Medal for Valor. This moment became one of the defining episodes of his life, a story that captured the imagination of the American public and demonstrated his bravery, leadership, and refusal to abandon his men. When John returned home after the war, he was seen not only as a war hero but also as someone destined for public service. With his father's political connections and his own growing reputation, he entered politics. In 1946, he ran for Congress from Massachusetts and won, marking the beginning of a political career that would soon capture the nation. In the House of Representatives, and later in the Senate, John built his reputation as a thoughtful, articulate leader who cared deeply about America's role in the world. Despite continuing battles with his health, many of which were kept hidden from the public, he never let his physical struggles limit his vision. By the 1950s, John Kennedy was becoming a rising star in the Democratic Party. His marriage to Jacqueline Bouvier in 1953 added to his charm and appeal, making the couple America's version of royalty. Together, they embodied youth, elegance, and hope for a new generation. Yet behind the scenes, John's battles with severe back pain and Addison's disease continued, forcing him to undergo multiple surgeries. At one point, doctors believed he might not survive. But time and again, he proved that his willpower was stronger than his suffering. His resilience became part of his legend, a man who looked healthy, confident, and strong on the outside, but who fought private battles every single day. This combination of courage, charisma, and determination set the stage for what was to come. His historic run for the presidency in 1960. America was changing, the world was facing the Cold War, and the nation was hungry for fresh leadership. John F. Kennedy, the boy once thought too weak to survive, was about to prove himself as one of the most inspirational leaders in history. After his return from World War II, John F. Kennedy quickly transitioned into public service, winning a seat in the House of Representatives in 1946 at just 29 years old. At first, many assumed his political career would simply ride on the coattails of his wealthy and influential father, Joseph Kennedy Sr. Yet, John soon proved that he possessed his own intelligence, charm, and vision that set him apart. In the House, he focused on issues like housing for veterans and international affairs, gradually shaping his identity as a thoughtful leader. But Kennedy was not content with remaining in the shadows. His ambitions, sharpened by tragedy and strengthened by his wartime heroics, pushed him toward greater heights. In 1952, he challenged and defeated Henry Cabot Lodge Jr., a respected Republican senator from Massachusetts. This victory was significant. Kennedy had unseated a powerful figure, showing that he was capable of commanding attention on the national stage. As a senator, Kennedy built a reputation as a pragmatic politician who blended youthful energy with a deep understanding of global challenges. He was not the loudest voice in the chamber, but when he spoke, people listened. His speeches reflected a balance of optimism and realism, resonating with both ordinary citizens and intellectuals. In 1956, Kennedy gained national attention when he nearly became the Democratic vice presidential nominee. Though he lost narrowly, the exposure placed him firmly in the spotlight, paving the way for his future presidential run. But it wasn't just his political achievements that made John F. Kennedy stand out. His charisma, good looks, and natural charm captured America's imagination. His marriage to Jacqueline Bouvier in 1953 further amplified his appeal, turning the Kennedys into symbols of youth, elegance, and hope. Jackie, with her intelligence and poise, complemented John's magnetic personality, making them America's royal couple. This image of sophistication and freshness contrasted sharply with the older generation of leaders who had dominated Washington for decades. Still, Kennedy's road was far from smooth. His health issues persisted, often forcing him to hide the extent of his suffering. Behind closed doors, he relied on crutches, heavy medication, and frequent treatments for his chronic back pain and Addison's disease. Yet he refused to allow these struggles to overshadow his political rise. To the public, Kennedy was vibrant, confident, and unstoppable. Privately, he endured immense pain with quiet determination. This duality made his journey even more remarkable. Every speech, every campaign rally, and every handshake was a victory over his own physical battles. By the late 1950s, Kennedy had become a prominent national figure. His book, Profiles in Courage, published in 1956, won the Pulitzer Prize and cemented his image as an intellectual statesman. The book highlighted U.S. senators who had shown bravery and integrity, a theme that reflected Kennedy's own aspirations. With growing popularity and strong support from his family's powerful network, he set his sights on the presidency. The year 1960 marked a turning point not just for Kennedy but for American politics. At 43 years old, he declared his candidacy for president, entering a race that would become one of the most iconic in U.S. history. His main opponent was Richard Nixon, then vice president under Dwight D. Eisenhower. Nixon was experienced, seasoned, and widely respected, while Kennedy was seen by some as too young, too inexperienced, and even too Catholic for the presidency. At the time, no Catholic had ever been elected president, and many feared his faith would influence his decisions in office. Kennedy, however, confronted these doubts directly, delivering a historic speech in Houston where he affirmed his belief in the absolute separation of church and state, reassuring voters that he would serve the Constitution above all else. His courage and clarity in addressing the issue turned skeptics into supporters. One of the most defining moments of the campaign came with the first-ever televised presidential debates. This was a revolutionary shift in American politics. Suddenly, appearance, poise, and presence mattered as much as words. Kennedy seized the moment. On September 26, 1960, during the first debate, Nixon appeared tired, pale, and uneasy under the harsh lights. Kennedy, on the other hand, looked confident, healthy, and composed. Millions of Americans watching from their living rooms saw a leader who looked ready for the future. Radio listeners thought the debate was a tie, but television viewers overwhelmingly believed Kennedy had won. This demonstrated the power of image in politics and showcased Kennedy's unique ability to connect with a modern audience. Kennedy's campaign slogan, "Let's get America moving again," captured the spirit of a new generation. He spoke of courage, change, and progress, offering hope in a time when America faced Cold War tensions, racial divisions, and economic challenges. His message resonated particularly with young people, who saw in him a reflection of their own dreams and energy. Despite being the underdog at the start, Kennedy's relentless campaigning, charismatic speeches, and ability to inspire propelled him forward. In November 1960, John F. Kennedy narrowly defeated Nixon in one of the closest elections in American history. At 43, he became the youngest man ever elected president and the first Catholic to hold the office. His victory represented more than just a political shift. It symbolized a generational change, the dawn of a new era. For millions of Americans, Kennedy embodied the future. Youthful, energetic, and visionary. His inauguration on January 20, 1961, remains one of the most iconic moments in U.S. history. Standing in the cold, with snowflakes drifting through the air, Kennedy delivered his unforgettable inaugural address. His words echoed across the nation and the world. "Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country." With those words, he challenged Americans to embrace service, sacrifice, and unity, setting the tone for a presidency that would inspire generations. But Kennedy's journey was just beginning. He had won the presidency, but now he faced the enormous task of leading a nation during some of its most turbulent years. Ahead of him lay the Cold War crises, the struggle for civil rights, and the dream of putting a man on the moon. His resilience, tested throughout his life, would be tested once more on the world stage.